once you get to the point of CPR with a preemie, it's usually not going to likely be a positive outcome. Something that was really special between him and I is that whenever I would see him, he would reach for my pinky and hold on to it. This time he didn't reach for my pinky, but I still touched him. I still told him I was there and that I love him.
Hey everybody, it's me, Shay. Welcome to Grief Witnessed, where we remember, where we tell the stories, and where grief is allowed to exist without fixing it. Hey everybody, I am here with my dear, dear friend, Collin. Collin, welcome to the show.
Shay, thank you for having me. I'm so excited. This is how we get to reunion from our meetup that we had with everyone in Utah.
Well, honestly, I would much rather have this be in person, but we'll settle with virtual.
Yeah, we'll settle here. We'll do a part 2 in person.
Yes.
We'll get there eventually.
Yes.
But it's great.
So Collin and I, we met on Instagram. His wife, Camry, did she die in May of last year?
July.
So she died right after Tanner died. And I remember seeing your stuff come up on Instagram and was it on TikTok too?
People copied it onto TikTok, but I never shared anything directly.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's out there.
I remember seeing the stuff, and I remember like messaging you and being like, hey, my husband died of colon cancer. Did I invite you to something? I don't remember what happened.
Yeah. So from my perspective, I had a lot of people in my comments telling me to get connected to you because of the similarity of our stories. And so I originally, I think, commented on one of your posts, and I don't think you saw it, but then you ended up DMing me, and I was like, oh, hey, cool. I tried reaching out to you a while ago. And then from there, we kicked off conversation. And then that's when you had invited me to the Widows and Widowers event that we did in Utah. And I just so happened to be going to Arizona at the same time. And so I flew in for, I think it was literally 24 hours I was there. Flew into Utah. We did some Instagram stuff together.
Yes.
We did the rage room.
The rage room with a bunch of widow and widowers. Yes.
Yeah.
It was
a great time. It was a great time.
It was. And we made the colon cancer awareness video, which I've reshared recently because it is March. So it's Colorectal Cancer Awareness Month. So yeah, I reshared that because colon cancer is now the #1 cancer killer under 50 years old.
Yeah, I know.
So
it's devastating, but also in a way affirming.
Yeah.
Because now there's more visibility on it in a way that I don't think there was before. I don't know. At least anecdotally, I feel like when you and I growing up, breast cancer was always the most talked about cancer. And colorectal cancer, I didn't even really know much about at all. And now it's so much more in the forefront of conversation, I feel.
Yeah, agreed. Well, I would love to start off by hearing your love story with Camry and how you guys met and what that all looked like.
Yeah. So it started at a friend's birthday party. So our friend Alex, it was his birthday, and her and I had not known each other at all at this point. I'd maybe had heard her name in passing or something to that extent, but never met her, never knew her. And I happened to see her across the party at some point, and I kind of just put a little note in my head of like, okay, like she's cute. But neither of us did anything that night. Like we didn't connect, we didn't talk at all. But then she actually reached out to me on Instagram. And then from there, we started to talk a little bit. That kind of fizzled out, actually. There wasn't really anything substantive that came from that. But then, I don't know, maybe a month or two after that, I was on Hinge, the dating app, and saw her on there. And I was like, oh, I kind of know her. Let's see where this goes. And so we connected and started talking. And then from there, went on our first date. And then from our first date, we just continued getting to know each other and spending time together. And over time, we got to a place of just feeling like, yeah, let's do this exclusively. And
Okay.
then from there, yeah, just started getting more integrated into each other's lives. And then it was 2024, May of 2024, when we got the diagnosis. So at that point, her and I had been together for about 2 years.
Okay.
And at that point, 2 years in, there's conversation about marriage and what long-term looks like and all of those things. And so those conversations were on the table. When we got the diagnosis, we had opposite responses as far as thinking about marriage.
Okay.
Where her response was, let's do this as soon as possible. And my response was, let's focus on your healing. Mine was coming from this place of anxiety of, I know that there's a lot of decision-making and pressure and stress that comes with a wedding and will inevitably be put on her body. And so my fear, concern was just around what that might do for her own healing process. And so, yeah, go ahead.
I'm curious if you had any fear just about like marrying someone, and was she stage 4 when she was diagnosed?
So that part is interesting. We were told that she was stage 1, but in actuality, she was stage 3.
Okay.
So
that's crazy.
Yeah, it was quite a shock to us because when they found the cancer in May of 2024, they had told us, I think in June of 24, you've got time, you can do the surgery and get it removed. But in actuality, it ended up being stage 3. So then the surgery was not a possibility for her. And she then was in a place where she was not really interested in chemotherapy, primarily because she was not wanting to trust. I think a lot of it came down to trust for her. I think a lot of it came down to quality of life versus quantity of life. She was concerned about what her quality of life could look like with chemotherapy. And I think in a lot of ways that just boiled down to her acceptance of death. She, of course, was terrified of death and scared a lot of those things, but she also recognized that if she were to do chemo, that it would just be delaying the inevitable, and she didn't want to be bedridden for however long and to just put herself through that chemo. And she didn't necessarily have the hope that it would heal her. And that was also in part because doctors were saying the likelihood of full curability was in the single digits.
Yeah.
And so she approached it from a more holistic perspective. She was more focused on diet. She was focused on being able to create a more well-rounded sense of spirituality and overall just mental health and physical health. And that's how she wanted to approach it. And I think her and I both waxed and waned in our optimism about that, even helping her or aiding her throughout the process. But looking back now, I feel extremely proud of her for making the choices that she made.
Yeah.
Because it was a really hard choice. It was a risky choice, but it was her choice. It wasn't someone else dictating what she should do. She was doing what she felt was right for her. And I think she would still feel that way. I think she would still be proud of herself for taking the route that she did. And that's a gamble that she was willing to make. And so I feel proud of her for doing that still, even though it's
touching.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I could look at it and I could say, man, if she just did chemo, she might still be here or whatever.
Yeah.
But I think, especially in this space of grief and death and the finality of it, it's been truly a practice in not living in regret. And I don't know what
1000%
you just regret in general. And it's not even necessarily in an avoidant way where I'm wanting to avoid different outcomes or different scenarios because it makes me sad. It's more just accepting the reality of what is and what was and not trying to alter it. And I think acceptance more than anything else is what's helped me through my grief. Being able to just say that these are the events that occurred. This is what happened. And here I am now. That to me is what helps me to be grounded in all of it, because there are a lot of folks who I think are struggling with the acceptance piece. And that's in no way a judgment at all. It's just the way that they're processing their grief. I personally had just throughout the whole process have found for myself that whenever I've started to lean into a realm that I would consider not accepting the circumstance, that's when I really struggle. That's when it gets much harder to accept or be present to where I am now.
Yeah, I remember for me, if I was not in the area of acceptance, then it was an emotional roller coaster for me of like, he's going to live and then he's going to die and then he's going to live and he's going to die. And when I got to the place of like, he's going to die and I'm going to like love every single moment and hope for every single moment that I can with him. It was way more of a grounding experience. And I, like you're saying, I was able to be present with him. But you talking, Collin, just a reminder of how grounding, like what a grounding presence you are. People don't know your background. Do you want to tell them your background of like what you went to school for? I know you're not currently practicing that, but it's just so, I don't know. It's very grounding.
Yeah, definitely. So I grew up in what I'd consider a very Christian environment, more specifically what a lot of people would dub the mega church. And I had a lot of positive experiences with that, a lot of negative experiences, but ultimately it was very ingrained in my life and a lot of how I approached life and where a lot of my values were instilled. And there was a point in life where I actually went to school to be a pastor, and that was the trajectory that I thought my life was going to go on. I had gone specifically to be part of church planting, which, if for folks who don't know what church planting is, that's essentially just starting a church from the ground up. And so I had a lot of passion and interest in that. And at the time, I would say calling to do those things. And I had wound up in, of all places, Sydney, Australia. And when I was there, was working with a church and was offered a position to be a pastor there. That inevitably ended up not working out. And from that, it propelled me into really reflecting on what is my calling? What am I doing with my life? What do I believe? What are my values? And from there, it was a lot of deconstruction of my faith and trying to understand what's at the core of this, because regardless of what system of belief you have, there's some level of faith that's required for it. And when it came to Christianity specifically, I came to a place where I had whittled away a lot of the structure and principles of Christianity. And it wasn't even that I was throwing it all out and saying that it wasn't valuable. It was more so a general skepticism and level of faith required that I was not able to resonate with. And so then at the end of it, it really just whittled down to my relationship with Jesus. And I think that was at the core of my entire faith journey, was what is my relationship with Jesus like? And as I started to assess that and parse that apart more as well, I came to a place where it just personally did not feel as sincere and as deep and as personal as I thought it was. And at that point, it started to just feel insincere to call myself a Christian. And, you know, for my Christian folk, they might consider that a lukewarm Christian. So I got to a point where it felt insincere, and I was in a lot of ways still in prayer and asking, like, if this is the one true way, show me, make it apparent to me. And I don't even know what that sign would be or what it would look like, but ultimately I just got to a place where saying that Christianity was the one truth, the one way, was something that no longer resonated with me. And I've been in a place now where if I were to label it, I would say I'm agnostic. I still believe that there is a higher being or beings, and that there is some level of orchestration of the universe. Now, what level of involvement those beings or being have in our lives and what we do, I don't know. But I think that regardless of belief, an open heart, an open posture to what the higher powers are wanting us to receive is what's most important. And I think that for different folks, they want to find that within a specific faith system. And I have a lot of respect and admiration for that. I still have a lot of Christian friends, and they're very thoughtful and very loving in the way that they approach their lives. And so I have a lot of admiration and appreciation for that. I personally just don't resonate with Christianity in the same way.
Yeah.
But I think that there's still lessons to be learned. I think that I still have an open heart to whatever is out there. And so, yeah, I'm accepting of all prayer. I appreciate all prayer. So for everyone out there, if you want to pray for me and, do your thing.
I appreciate your authenticity, and there is a grief that comes with deconstructing a faith and a religion. I've had some followers request, like, hey, can you do grief episodes on like deconstructing and leaving a religion, because there's a lot of grief in that. So thanks for that like introduction for future episodes that we'll do on that.
Absolutely. If you want me to return for it, happy to, because I could talk ad nauseum.
I love it. Okay. So when did you and Camry make the decision to get married? And from your experience, did you have like any anxiety or sadness about the possibility of like being a widower?
Yeah. So we had the conversations of marriage certainly throughout her diagnosis, because she was from diagnosis to death. It was just over a year or so.
Yeah.
And in that period, a lot of that time was focused on her healing. And then throughout that, we were also having conversations about marriage. And I continually was just, I would say there was some level of avoidance or maybe ignorance or a displaced optimism, where in my head, I just kept saying like, she's going to get through this. She's going to get healed. We're going to be on the other side of this. We're going to be in a place where we can just move on with our lives. We will get the cancer stuff taken care of, and then we'll be able to live our lives in all the ways that we want to. So I kept pushing it off, and mostly coming just from a place of protection and preservation of her healing process. And then it was December of 24 that we learned it was stage 4. And at that point, she was given anywhere from 6 months to 2 years. And that, to me, created an additional level of urgency where I shifted my mindset, and I was like, okay, this mindset that I'm in now is not realistic. And so there was a grief and fear and anxiety around that. And it wasn't a fear or anxiety about marrying her. It was the realization that there's a very likely path here of her dying.
Yeah.
And so that's where it was almost this next phase of acceptance. And so that's when I started to get things in order as quickly as possible to make it happen. And something that Camry and I had said a lot throughout that year was to operate out of a place of love, not out of a place of fear.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. And so throughout that time, even before the marriage conversations and all of that, we were still in this mindset of let's soak up life. Let's enjoy life. Let's do the things that we can. And marriage was one of those things. And so it was February of 2025 that I had proposed. And then late February, we found out that she was pregnant.
Yeah.
Which, and I will claim full ignorance here. Like I did not think that would be possible at all. She didn't either. And so that to both of us was a shock. But when it happened, we both looked at each other and were just like, I think this is an opportunity. Like there was an element of it, and I know you can relate to a lot of this. There was just this element of like a piece of you gets to live on.
Totally.
And that's not to say that that's the primary reason to have a kid, but
yeah,
there was that aspect of it that felt really beautiful. And so at that point, she's pregnant. Then we're starting to discuss wedding. And I think we were both still in this level of unjustified optimism where we were not we were not concerned with the timelines that we were given by doctors. We were just concerned with not stopping from living our lives. That was our main concern. Like, we were both in the mindset of, I don't care if it's 6 months, I don't care if it's 2 years. We're not going to put our lives on ice just because we've been given this timeline. And so from there, we got married at the end of March. So it was March 21st, aka 321. We just thought that was a fun date. So that's coming up. Our 1 year anniversary is coming up. And so I'm having a lot of anticipation about what that day is going to feel like. But we got married in March of last year. And I'm so grateful that we did it when we did, because I don't think we would have been able to do it even a month after that point, just from where her health was at. Because now at this point, she's battling stage 4 cancer and is in her first trimester. Like,
oh, bless her heart.
Unfathomable.
Yeah.
And there were lots of conversations between the two of us, between family, between friends, and between doctors of, are you too sure that you want to pursue this pregnancy? Due to her health, we were given an exception where the pregnancy could be terminated much later on in the pregnancy for the well-being of the child. And so we had that as an option. And I'm so glad that we had that as an option. And it was something that doctors were never forcing or recommending one way or another. They were just providing all the options of what we had. And continually, Camry said that the pain of not trying would be worse than the pain that she was experiencing. And so we kept trying, and she kept having that baby grow. And around the same time, we were also wanting to get a house. And I already had a house, but I had a roommate, and we wanted to have our own place, especially thinking about having a kid and all of that. And so we bought a house as well throughout this time. And it's such a unique home. It's got so much character, and it's in the middle of the woods, and it, in a lot of ways, was just very Camry. And I'm so appreciative that her and I got to share that moment too, of being able to own a home together. Although she only got to see it once after we had bought it, there was just never really the opportunity for her to go. And just with the timelines of everything, and it happened so fast, like there was just not time for us to move in there and get there on time. But regardless of that, we, in terms of her health throughout that span of time, she had a stent surgery done. I don't know if Tanner had that or not.
On his liver?
On his
colon.
Her colon.
Oh yeah.
So her colon cancer was right around the cusp of her rectosigmoid junction. So it was kind of towards the bottom. And she had a colonic stent placed, and that was just to prevent from the cancer completely closing off her colon.
Yes, Tanner had one of those as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
So she had that surgery, and after that surgery, she had a very high spike in pain and a very lowered autonomy, where she was no longer able to move and function in the same way she was before. And just as an example, she was walking for an hour every single day.
Yeah.
And then after that surgery, she was struggling to go from one room to the next. And so she was in a lot of pain, and she was getting recommendations from doctors to be on pain meds and to take different routes of some remediations. And she was trying to put it off for as much time as she could because she was scared of what the implications of that would be for even more of her autonomy. And so she put it off for a while. I was very much supportive of her doing what she needed to do, but was also pushing for her to try the pain meds route, because when you see someone you love in that much pain, it's really hard to number one, see them in that pain, but also to not be able to do anything about it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I could give her all the foot rubs in the world and make all of her meals, all of that. It's not going to make her pain go away. And at the same time as all this stuff is happening, our baby's, taking nutrients and trying to feed itself. And when this was in March, when we had done the ultrasound, our baby was at the 91st percentile in size. So he was a big dude.
Yeah, he was a big boy.
Yeah. And so, yeah, he was taking a lot of nutrients, but time goes on and we are continually having conversations with doctors, both in regards to her cancer and the pregnancy. We were in and out of the high risk OBGYN constantly. And they were such a great team, super supportive and helpful and attentive and proactive. I'm so appreciative for them. And we got to the point where it was late June and her state of health had rapidly decreased, where she was oftentimes screaming in pain because she still was not wanting to take any pain meds. And so it got to the point where I had to, in some ways, force her to go to the hospital.
Yeah.
She ultimately agreed, but I started to be a lot more forceful about it. And this needs to happen. And so we get her to the hospital, and that's when she started to get some morphine. And at that point, she was starting to feel a lot more alleviation of her pain, which was such a relief for both her and I. And she was, from that point on, hospitalized until her death.
Yeah.
And it was about a week and a half, 2 weeks that she was in the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
And when I had said earlier that our wedding happened at the right time because it couldn't have happened any later, I mean it. Like, if you think about, or if I think about where she was at the end of March to where she was at the end of June, two completely different people in states of being.
Yeah.
And So she was in the hospital, and I had mentioned that she was in a lot of pain, and her hypothesis at the time was that she was in pain from this colonic stent that she got placed. But as they did more tests and diagnostics while she was hospitalized, they identified that the cancer metastasis in her liver had grown so exponentially that the pain that she was experiencing was just from the cancer overtaking her liver. And that was a moment that was really frustrating, because throughout her entire year or so of being diagnosed, we were aware of the possibility of the cancer spreading to the liver, and we knew that was part of stage 4 and all of that. I think what was more frustrating was that it was put on the back burner as far as priority to assess that and keep a pulse on that. And we had met with multiple specialists and doctors, and we had not met with a liver specialist at any point. And part of that was we were ignorant and just taking the guidance from the doctors that were there. But regardless, it was just frustrating, because once we found out about the growth of the cancer in the liver, the doctors told us point blank, there's nothing we can do at this point. They were like, even if you wanted to start chemo, you're too weak to do it. And so we were in this place where we're kind of out of options. And then that's when I had gotten a call, because I wasn't specifically at the hospital at the time, but I got a call, and her doctor had informed me that she probably had about a week left. And I was having a hard time accepting that. In my mind, I was like, surely it's not a week. Like, it's got to be longer. Like, there's no way it's only a week. And then at that point, I was scrambling. I was panicked. I wasn't sure what exactly to do, but I got back to the hospital, and I was debating whether I should tell Camry, because her doctor had told me that she did not tell Camry. And that's, I mean, just reflecting on it now, that's a really difficult place to be, where you are given a time clock for your partner, and they don't even know. And so she of course knew that she was in a bad state of health, but she didn't have the timeline like I did. And that was really hard to sit with. It's, it's like you're just standing there watching somebody who's blindfolded about to walk off a bridge or something, and you've just got to let it happen.
Yeah.
And I remember asking her, or maybe subtly implying, I just said, did she give you any timelines? And she was like, no, and I don't want to know.
Okay.
And I was like, okay.
Yeah.
And at this point, we were starting to have conversations with doctors about the pregnancy more, because we were approaching viability, which is 23 weeks. So doctors were wanting to have conversations about what scenarios or what decisions we'd want to make depending on what scenarios played out. And so we were trying to have those conversations, but just based on the state that Camry was in, she was unable to have those conversations. So I had to have those conversations alone with doctors, deciding the fate of my wife and son.
Did you know you were having a boy at that point?
Yes.
You did?
We did.
Okay.
Yeah, we did. We knew it was a boy. We hadn't picked out a name yet. We had ideas, but we hadn't picked out a name.
Yeah.
And so I sat with doctors for almost 2 hours, just going through every single scenario of this is what survivability will look like if the baby's born at 23 weeks versus 24 versus 25. Here's the likelihood of long-term conditions at each of those stages. And then there were options thrown at me of, okay, if Camry dies, but we have hit viability, we have to get that baby out ASAP because oxygen will be cut off and the baby would die. So we need to know if we need to intervene or if you just want to let the baby peacefully pass. And we went through C-section, almost every scenario we had gone through. And the general place that we left was that if she were to die in the 23-week range, or they had to do a C-section then, or whatever the case may be, that the risks associated to it were just too high. And that I don't think that it'd be worth pursuing. And so that was a really hard thing to accept and to decide, but it also felt like the most loving thing because I don't know what the life of that child would look like.
Yeah.
Especially if it was something that we were orchestrating to make happen or to induce the labor. But then after that point, I wanted to try. And so the 23-week mark hits to the day. And I wake up that morning and Camry goes to the bathroom. She calls for me and she tells me that her water broke at
That's
23 weeks.
Crazy. I remember you telling me this.
Yeah.
And you were like, I didn't have to make the decision. Like it was made for me.
Yeah.
Oh,
and
crazy.
Yeah. So I was in a panic because the doctors and I looked at each other and we were like, this is literally the one scenario we didn't think about.
Yeah.
And so I went for a walk and I ended up calling one of her spiritual teachers, and she reminded me of the mantra that Camry and I had over the past years to operate not out of a place of fear, but out of a place of love.
Yeah.
And so then it felt like I just got this flood of revelation of what I needed to do. And I get back up there and I tell the doctors, we're going to try. And so we go in there and then I go to Camry and I'm like, we're going to try. She's like, we're going to try. I'm like, yes. And then she just took a deep breath and she's like, okay. And Chance was born and delivered in less than an hour because of how tiny he was. He was only 1 pound. And
did she push?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Natural birth.
Oh my gosh.
Insanity. Insanity. It was unfathomable.
Yeah.
And I was just a weeping mess throughout all of it.
Yeah, of course.
And I think the thing that lives with me to this day as a gift and a treasure that I will hold forever is that the two of them got to meet.
Yeah.
That was something that we never imagined. was going to be a possibility. And then I'll fast forward a little bit, but
wait, did you say his name?
Chance.
Chance. Okay. And did you name him? Did she name him?
She did. Yeah.
Oh, Chance. It's so beautiful.
Yeah.
It'll make me cry.
Yeah. I had wanted her to pick the name. I knew that was the name she already wanted, but once he was born and in the NICU and doing okay, and I got to check in on him, I came back down to her and I was like, what do you want for his name to be?
Yeah.
She said Chance. And I was like, right, we're doing Chance. And as the day went on, she got more exhausted and just more out of it. And she passed later that day, same day. And I'm grateful that a lot of her family was there. Not everyone got to be there, which was its own sadness. In part, it was just, it happened so fast.
Yeah.
But that day in and of itself is generally a blur. But just from the part that resonates the most and I remember the most is just the anger that I felt towards the medical staff at that point. Because after she delivered, hospice came to me and was like, hey, she got the baby out. Let's move her over to hospice. And simultaneously, I'm being told like that she's got a week. And at this point, it's like she's got a couple days based on when they had told me. And I told them, I was like, what husband would I be to make my dying wife, who just gave birth, be put on a stretcher, put in an ambulance, and moved to another hospital away from her son? Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
And so that was infuriating. But there were also great doctors and staff that were supportive and helpful throughout everything. And it was frustrating throughout the day because there were staff that were not really giving me the whole story of what was going on. Just based on her health and how she was doing, she did not seem okay at all. Every breath that she was taking that day seemed like it was going to be her last breath.
Yes.
And so I was asking doctors and nurses throughout the day, I'm like, how close are we to death right now? Like, this does not seem okay. And the general answer I kept giving was, women are tired after birth, so that's probably what it is. And I'm like, okay, but this is not a normal birth. This is not a birth. And I'm so grateful because one of her doctors, who had been with her for a long time, came into the room later on in the day. And she looked at Camry for about 3 or 4 seconds. And she was like, Collin, she's got hours.
Yeah.
Like, say your goodbyes.
Yeah.
And as devastating as that was, it was also a relief that it was like, okay, someone's finally being real with me and telling me what amount of time we have left. And so, I just, once she told me that, I just started sobbing. And I got to give her a hug. And she was still slightly aware at that time. But she just looked at me and she said, just breathe. Just breathe. And I started to take some deep breaths, and she then she and I sat there for some time in her bed, and I held her and was talking to her and reflecting on how grateful I am for her, and something that her and I had really talked about, and she really was wanting to ensure that I knew, was she wanted me to keep living my life.
Yeah.
She wanted me to keep enjoying life. She didn't want me to put life on pause after she was gone. And I was so grateful that her and I had that conversation, because there's so much guilt in general with death, but especially with a partner, it's hard to want to move forward at times and to want to enjoy life, whatever that looks like. But I just have her voice in the back of my head whenever I have a down day or I'm feeling guilty about enjoying life. I can just hear her just being like, what are you doing? Go enjoy life. Stop it.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that was some of our final moments together. And then the hospital staff are like, all right, thanks for your stay. See ya. And it's just like,
oh my
shocking.
gosh.
And the particular hospital we're at, like, it has a valet service, and the valet drivers mean well and all of that. But I get downstairs from that, and then the valet driver asks me, how's the wife and baby? And I'm just like, I just said good, because I couldn't even at that time.
Yeah. So
yeah, go ahead.
How many, so you are, a lot of our viewers don't know this, but you are a widower, but you also lost Chance.
Yeah. Yeah.
How many days did you get earthside with him?
9.
9 days.
9 days.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So he was in the NICU, and every day that I could see him, I saw him. There were some days where staff had said he needed to stay intubated.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, every day I could, I went and saw him, and at the same time, I'm juggling funeral and just death logistics and grieving all of that. And then I got a call early in the morning, and they said that they would most likely be having a surgery done on him, and that I would need to get there right away. And so I book it to the hospital. I get there, and one of the doctors sit me down in a room, and they're telling me that they found air in his stomach, and they don't know exactly what it is, but could potentially be SIDS, which is pretty common for preemies. And it would indicate that there was some sort of perforation in his colon, potentially.
Yeah.
And so there was just this serendipitous thing with the colon throughout both of these experiences. And so I am in there. They're describing what potential surgeries they might have to do. And then that's when another nurse or doctor comes into the room, and they say, he's coding.
Oh.
So we stop the paperwork. We run over there. Doctors are all talking to me, telling me what's happening, trying to get me up to date. and they are at this point giving him CPR. And they tell me that once you get to the point of CPR with a preemie, it's usually not going to likely be a positive outcome. And so they said, if you want us to stop at any point, we can stop. And in the midst of all of this, I'm angry, primarily because I'm being surrounded by and inundated by these doctors and nurses. And all in my mind, I'm like, let me touch him. Like, let me get to him. And so I kind of cut them off and tell them, like, I want to see him. And so they clear a path, and I get to him. And something that was really special between him and I is that whenever I would see him, he would reach for my pinky and hold on to it. And this time he didn't reach for my pinky, but I still touched him. I still told him I was there and that I love him. And then I stepped away and let them continue to do what they needed to do. And at this point, his heart rate was so low. I think it was in the teens at this point. And I said, stop, just stop. So they stop. They start to remove all of the tubes that he had on him. And I had never seen him without any tubes. And so I got to hold him for the first time without tubes as he died. And after he died, that was the first time that I got to see his eyes. And he had Camry's eyes. So abundantly, clearly had Camry's eyes.
Yeah.
And I'm, of course, a mess as all of this is happening. And then the medical staff are coming around, a lot of them crying too.
Yeah.
And then they're asking me, like, okay, what do you want us to do with him? We can get things made, et cetera, et cetera. And I was just so overwhelmed and angry and upset and everything.
Yeah.
I'm just like, how can I get out of here? Because I got to a point where it was like, I'm holding him. I'm looking at him. I've accepted this, but then it got to a point where it was like, this is too much. It's not benefiting me. It's just infuriating me. And so I told them, I was like, what do you need from me so that I can get out of here?
Yeah.
And so they did that. And I just storm out of there. And I felt like I was ready to break a window. Like,
yeah,
I was furious. And I think a lot of that anger just came from, of course, a source of pain, but also just
absolutely,
a frustration with the universe and with everything that had already transpired, that it's like, another thing? Are you kidding me? And
I mean, yeah, you just lost your wife and your son within a little over a week. Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell me, how are you moving forward with your love of Camry and your love of Chance and being his dad?
Yeah. So a couple things. I think one is that I have them with me everywhere I go. So the day that Camry died, I took her wedding band off and I've had it around my necklace. And one of my friends gifted me a little leather ring to signify Chance. So this goes everywhere. And then I also got a tattoo of them together.
Yeah.
And so those are just some things, but I think other ways would be with Camry, I am focused on representing her well in everything I do. And so whether that be advocating for colon cancer or for the other social civil rights topics that she was passionate about, because she went to law school and she was a very well educated woman and was extremely passionate about advocating for everyone.
Yeah.
And so that is how I know that she would want to be represented. And for Chance, I would say that he gifted me with fatherhood. And with that, he opened my heart in ways that I did not think were possible. And the cliches of becoming a parent are so true, where once you see that baby and hold that baby, you realize just how much more love you had within yourself. And so he gave me the gift of loving children. And that's not to say that I didn't like children before.
Yeah.
But I see him in them now. And my compassion and love and enthusiasm for kids has just grown so much more. And so I almost view Chance as my way of, or I should say, my way of honoring Chance is through just letting my love be open to all the kids that are out there. I think that every child is deserving and wanting of love and safety and security and joy and fun. And so I have a passion for that now in a way that I didn't necessarily as intensely before.
Yeah.
And so those, I would say, are some of the main ways. They're both cremated as well. And so spreading their ashes is also important for me, but it's also very anxiety inducing because it's like every spreading of their ashes, that's a part of them that I'm losing. And I almost am in this analysis paralysis with it, where it's like, I want the place or places that I spread them to be meaningful and special and also not illegal. So, which frankly, I'm the least worried about, but still I want to be ethical with it. But
who's going to know? Nobody's going to know.
They're not going to know. Right.
They're not going to know.
No. So yeah, let's just say I'm spreading ashes in legal places.
Okay. We'll say that for the recording.
Exactly. But yeah, so there's that aspect of things where I feel a strong amount of almost, if you will, like sanctity around their ashes, where I want to make sure that where I have them, where they're spread, that it's all somewhere that is significant and represents them. And there's just, anxiety around it being good enough.
Yeah.
And so that's something that I'm navigating right now is feeling almost this stagnation or maybe compartmentalization as it pertains to their ashes and what to do with them. And there's a general guilt about that too, where I know she doesn't want to be on a fireplace for the rest of her existence. And so I do feel pressure to not stagnate too much in that decision making.
Well, remember what she said. She wants you to like take a deep breath.
Yeah.
And she wants you to enjoy life. And I don't think she would want you to stress about it also.
Yeah. You're right.
But thank you, Collin, for sharing your story so eloquently and for being so vulnerable and letting me and our viewers witness your story and your grief.
Yeah. Thank you, Shay. You're doing such amazing, impactful, beautiful things. And I admire you, my friend.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, my friend. Collin, I hope that we can meet together soon in person and do a part 2 to this podcast. So thank you for joining us today.
That would be amazing. Yeah. Okay. We'll have to make it happen. Okay.
All right.
Thanks.
Love
Shay.
it. Okay. Yeah.